Look at this. A black couple actually thought they belonged in a place like this. Sergeant Derek Collins sneered as he deliberately knocked Samuel Brooks' overnight bag onto the polished marble floor with the toe of his boot. Clothes, a framed anniversary photo, and a small gift box scattered across the hotel lobby, while dozens of guests stopped to watch. Lillian Brooks, an elegant black woman wearing her best navy dress, rushed forward in shock. "Please, that's our anniversary gift," Collins laughed without an ounce of sympathy. 40 years together, you should have spent those years learning where you're welcome. The hotel manager chuckled beside him, before adding loudly enough for everyone to hear. People like them always walk into luxury hotels, hoping someone won't notice. Embarrassed whispers spread through the crowd. Samuel bent down to collect the photo, but Collins grabbed him by the collar, slammed him against the marble wall, and twisted his arms behind his back. "We've broken no law," Samuel said calmly. "Oh, you'll think of a better lie on the way to jail," Collins replied as the handcuffs clicked shut. Lillian reached for her husband, tears streaming down her face. "He has a heart condition. Please don't do this." Collins shoved her back. "Save the performance, ma'am. Nobody here is buying it." The lobby fell silent. Then the thunder of powerful engines echoed outside. 5 black SUVs stopped at the entrance. A sharply dressed man stepped out, his eyes locking onto the handcuffs around Samuel's wrists. Everything was about to change. "Before we reveal who just arrived, tell us where you're watching from and what your local time is. Stay until the very end, because one hidden truth is about to turn this humiliation into a moment no one in that hotel will ever forget." And if stories about courage, justice, and standing up for what's right inspire you, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next unforgettable story. Welcome back. Sometimes the most important part of a journey happens after the camera is turned off. 3 days earlier, Harbor Crown Hotel was nothing more than a destination on a confirmation email. Lillian Brooks smiled every time she looked at it. 40 years. 40 years of marriage, sacrifice, and quiet victories that rarely made headlines. She folded the printed reservation and tucked it carefully inside her purse as Samuel poured 2 cups of coffee in the tiny kitchen of their modest Baltimore home. "You've checked that reservation at least 10 times, Samuel teased with a grin. "I just don't want anything to ruin this weekend." He handed her a mug before sitting beside her. "When has God ever stopped surprising us?" Lillian laughed softly. "He usually surprises us by sending another bill." They both laughed, the kind of laughter that only couples who had weathered decades together could share. Their life had never been glamorous. Samuel had spent 38 years climbing utility poles through freezing winters and blazing summers before retiring as an electrician. His hands remained rough, marked by scars that told stories of honest labor. Lillian had devoted more than 3 decades to teaching elementary school in one of Baltimore's toughest neighborhoods. Thousands of children had passed through her classroom. Many still called her every Mother's Day. Neither of them had become wealthy, but they had become respected. Their greatest pride wasn't the small brick house they finally paid off. It wasn't the old sedan parked outside. It wasn't even the retirement savings they had built one careful paycheck at a time. It was their only son, Marcus Brooks. Growing up, Marcus had watched his parents work endless hours without complaining. Whenever he asked why they never bought expensive things, Samuel always answered the same way. "Character lasts longer than money," Lillian would add with a smile. "And integrity is the only inheritance nobody can steal." Marcus carried those words with him long after leaving home. Although he called every week without fail, he rarely spoke about his work. Whenever Lillian asked what exactly he did for the government these days, Marcus would simply smile. Mostly paperwork. Samuel never believed that answer. No man works that many late nights pushing paper. Marcus only laughed. Maybe I'm just slow. The truth remained locked behind conversations he was never allowed to have. For years, Lillian had stopped asking. She only cared that her son sounded healthy and happy. 2 weeks before their anniversary, Marcus called unexpectedly. "I've got a surprise for both of you." "What kind of surprise?" Lillian asked. "If I tell you, it won't be one." Samuel leaned closer to the phone. "Just don't spend too much money. It's already done." 3 days later, an elegant envelope arrived. Inside was a reservation for Harbor Crown Hotel. 2 nights. A luxury suite overlooking Baltimore Harbor. Dinner reservations, spa appointments, even tickets for a harbor sunset cruise. Lillian stared at the papers in disbelief. This must have cost a fortune." Samuel shook his head. "Our boy never listens." She smiled while carefully touching Marcus's handwritten note. "Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. Happy 40th anniversary. I wish I could celebrate with you, but work is pulling me away again. Enjoy every minute. You deserve it. Love, Marcus." Lillian quietly wiped away a tear. "He always remembers." Samuel wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "He learned that from you." Saturday morning arrived beneath clear blue skies. Lillian wore the navy dress Samuel had bought her years earlier. "It's getting old," she said while looking into the mirror. Samuel smiled. "No." "What do you mean, no?" "The dress isn't what makes people look beautiful." She rolled her eyes playfully. "You've been practicing that line for 40 years. She laughed again before gently straightening his tie. "You still look handsome." "So do you." They drove toward downtown Baltimore talking about grandchildren they hoped to have someday. Someday-old vacations they could never afford, and how strangely quiet retirement felt after decades of working. As Harbor Crown Hotel came into view, Lillian stared through the windshield. The towering glass building reflected the afternoon sun like polished crystal. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Valets hurried from vehicle to vehicle. Guests in tailored suits crossed the revolving doors carrying designer luggage. Samuel parked carefully. "You nervous? A little." He squeezed her hand. "We belong wherever honest people walk." They stepped from their aging sedan. A young valet glanced at the car before forcing a polite smile. "Checking in." Samuel nodded. "For the Brooks reservation." The valet looked surprised for only a fraction of a second before taking the keys. "Of course, sir." Neither Samuel nor Lillian noticed the expression. Inside, the enormous lobby shimmered beneath crystal chandeliers. Soft piano music drifted through the air. Fresh flowers filled the room with the scent of lilies. Lillian looked around like a little girl visiting a palace. "It's beautiful." Samuel smiled. "So are you." She gently nudged his arm. "You keep saying that. I'm hoping one day you'll believe me." They approached the reception desk. A young receptionist greeted them warmly. "Welcome to Harbor Crown. May I have your name, please?" "Samuel Brooks," she typed quickly. Her smile faded. She looked at the screen again, then back at Samuel, then at Lillian. "I'm sorry." Samuel frowned. "Is something wrong?" Before the receptionist could answer, another voice interrupted from behind. "What's the problem here?" A sharply dressed man wearing a silver manager's badge walked toward the desk. His name read, Kevin Rhodes. The receptionist lowered her voice. "Mr. Rhodes, They're asking about the Harbor Suite reservation. Kevin glanced briefly at Samuel and Lillian. His expression changed almost instantly. Not confusion, not surprise, judgment. He slowly looked at their modest luggage, their inexpensive clothes, and finally the reservation on the computer. A cold smile spread across his face. "I'll handle this." Lillian exchanged a worried glance with Samuel. Neither of them realized that what should have been the happiest weekend of their marriage was only moments away from becoming the worst day of their lives. Kevin Rhodes stopped a few feet from the reception desk, buttoned his tailored jacket, and offered a smile that never reached his eyes. "Good afternoon," he said. "I'm Kevin Rhodes, the hotel manager. Is there a problem?" Samuel returned the smile politely. "I don't think so. We have a reservation under Brooks." Kevin glanced briefly at the computer screen before looking back at the elderly couple. "The Harbor Suite." "That's right." Lillian smiled warmly. "It was a surprise from our son." Kevin's expression remained perfectly composed, but his eyes lingered on their inexpensive luggage. Samuel's well-worn shoes and the aging suit that had been carefully pressed that morning. "I see." He tapped a finger lightly on the counter. "And your son booked our most exclusive suite." "Yes," Lillian nodded proudly. "We're celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary." Kevin looked at the receptionist. "Verify the payment again." The young receptionist hesitated. "I already did, sir. Everything appears—" "I said verify it again." She quietly obeyed. Lillian noticed the change in the atmosphere. Guests standing nearby had begun watching. Samuel leaned slightly toward the counter. "Is there something wrong with the reservation?" Kevin folded his hands. Sometimes reservations are made using stolen credit cards." The words hung heavily in the air. Lillian blinked. "I'm sorry. I'm simply following hotel policy." Samuel kept his voice calm. "Our son paid for the reservation." Kevin nodded slowly. Convenient explanation. The receptionist finally looked up. "Sir, the payment has been fully authorized." Kevin barely acknowledged her. "Run another verification." The young woman looked uncomfortable. "There isn't another verification to run." Kevin sighed dramatically before turning back to Samuel. "Would you mind showing me the credit card used for the reservation?" Samuel frowned. "It wasn't my card. It belongs to our son," Lillian explained. Kevin's smile disappeared. "Then I'm afraid we have a problem." Several guests exchanged curious glances. One woman whispered to her husband, "I knew something seemed off." Lillian heard every word. She swallowed hard. "Our son reserved the room because he couldn't join us." Kevin crossed his arms. "And what does your son do?" Lillian smiled. "He works for the federal government." "What department?" "I'm not really sure." Kevin raised an eyebrow. "You don't know where your own son works," Samuel answered calmly. "He doesn't talk much about his job." Kevin gave a short laugh. "How convenient." Lillian felt a knot forming in her stomach. "Our son values privacy." "I'm sure he does." The sarcasm was impossible to miss. The receptionist quietly slid the reservation confirmation toward Kevin. "It all matches, sir." He didn't even look at it. Instead, he studied Samuel again. "You said your son paid for this?" "Yes." "And he isn't here?" "He's working." Kevin slowly nodded. "Interesting." Samuel's patience began wearing thin. "Sir, if there's an issue, please explain it." Kevin lowered his voice. "The issue is that expensive fraud often begins exactly like this. The surrounding conversation stopped. Every eye in the lobby seemed fixed on them. Lillian felt her cheeks burning. "We're not committing fraud." Kevin tilted his head, then proving it shouldn't be difficult. Samuel took a slow breath. "What exactly do you want? Identification?" Samuel immediately handed over his driver's license. Lillian did the same. Kevin studied both licenses longer than necessary. "You live on Maple Street?" "Yes." "A retired electrician?" Samuel nodded. "And a retired schoolteacher?" Lillian smiled faintly. "I taught third grade for 32 years. Kevin looked completely unimpressed. He placed both licenses on the counter but didn't return them. Instead, he turned toward the receptionist. "Call security." The young woman looked startled. "Sir, you heard me." Lillian's heart skipped. "Why do you need security?" Kevin answered without looking at her. "Until we determine whether this reservation was obtained legally." Samuel stared at him in disbelief. "We've answered every question. And I'm asking a few more." Within moments, 2 uniformed security officers approached. Guests subtly stepped farther away from Samuel and Lillian, as though simply standing nearby carried some risk. The movement didn't go unnoticed. Lillian looked around the lobby. People who had smiled politely when they entered were now avoiding eye contact. Others openly stared. A little girl tugged on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, what did they do?" The father quietly replied, "I don't know." But he didn't move closer either. Lillian lowered her eyes. 40 years of teaching children to respect others. 40 years of paying taxes. 40 years of serving their community. Yet all it took was a luxury hotel lobby for strangers to assume the worst. Samuel gently reached for her hand. "It's going to be all right." She nodded, though she wasn't sure she believed it. Kevin finally spoke again. "One last opportunity." Samuel looked directly into his eyes. "For what?" "Tell me the truth before the police become involved." Lillian's voice trembled. "We have told you the truth." Kevin gave an almost disappointed smile. "That's what everyone says." At that moment, the revolving doors opened again. Security Chief Melissa Grant walked briskly across the lobby. Kevin met her halfway. He spoke quietly enough that Samuel and Lillian couldn't hear every word. But they heard enough. A possible identity fraud. Suspicious reservation. Keep them here. Melissa glanced toward the elderly couple before nodding. She reached for the radio clipped to her shoulder. "Front desk to Baltimore Police. We need officers to respond for a possible fraud investigation." Lillian felt the color drain from her face. She looked at Samuel in disbelief. "They're calling the police." Samuel squeezed her hand a little tighter. "We've done nothing wrong." "I know, but I'm scared." Before Samuel could comfort her, Kevin looked back toward them with cold satisfaction. "They'll sort everything out." Outside the hotel, the distant sound of approaching sirens slowly grew louder. Neither Samuel nor Lillian realized that the next few minutes would change not only their anniversary, but the lives of everyone standing inside Harbor Crown Hotel. The approaching sirens grew louder until 2 Baltimore police cruisers stopped directly beneath the grand entrance of Harbor Crown Hotel. Every conversation inside the lobby faded. Several guests instinctively stepped closer to the windows, eager to watch. Lillian's hands began to tremble. Samuel quietly covered them with his own. "Look at me," he whispered. "No matter what happens, tell the truth. That's all we've ever done." She nodded, but her heartbeat wouldn't slow. The revolving doors opened. Two uniformed officers entered, followed by a broad-shouldered man with silver stripes on his sleeves. Sergeant Derek Collins. He scanned the lobby once before walking straight toward Kevin Rhodes. Kevin extended his hand. "Sergeant Collins, thank you for coming so quickly. We had another call nearby." Kevin lowered his voice. "I think we've got a fraud case, possibly identity theft." Collins looked past him at Samuel and Lillian. His eyes narrowed immediately. "So those are your suspects?" Kevin nodded. "They're claiming someone booked our harbor suite for them." Collins let out a dry chuckle. "I've heard that story before." Samuel stepped forward respectfully. "Officer, we'd appreciate the chance to explain." Collins didn't even acknowledge him. Instead, he slowly circled the couple, studying them as if they had already been convicted. "So," he finally said, "which one of you is running the scam?" "We're not scammers," Samuel replied calmly. "We're celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary." Collins looked at Kevin. "Anniversary?" Kevin shrugged. "That's what they say." Collins smirked. "They always have a good script." Lillian forced herself to remain composed. "Our son paid for this trip." "What does your son do?" "He works for the federal government." "What agency?" "I'm not sure." Collins laughed loudly enough for the surrounding guests to hear. "That's funny," Samuel frowned. "What's funny?" "A father doesn't know where his son works," Samuel answered honestly. "He keeps his job private. Or maybe he doesn't exist." Several people nearby exchanged uncomfortable glances. Lillian felt humiliation spreading through her chest. "Our son is very real." Collins suddenly held out his hand. "Phone." Lillian blinked. "What? Your phone?" "Why? I'll ask the questions." She slowly handed it over. Collins immediately extended his hand toward Samuel. "You too." Samuel hesitated. "Officer, do you have a warrant?" Collins's expression hardened instantly. "You really want to play lawyer? I only asked a question." Without warning, Collins grabbed Samuel's wrist and pulled him several steps away from Lillian. "Hands where I can see them!" Gasps echoed through the lobby. "Samuel." "I'm all right," he called back. Collins began patting him down aggressively, checking every pocket. Wallet, keys, reading glasses, a folded anniversary card. Nothing else. One younger officer quietly said, "Sergeant, I don't see anything." Collins ignored him. Instead, he grabbed Samuel's overnight bag from the luggage cart. "Let's see what's in here." Lillian instinctively stepped forward. "Please don't throw our things around." Collins looked at her with open irritation. "If you've got nothing to hide, this shouldn't bother you." He unzipped the bag. Clothes, medicine, a small wrapped jewelry box, an old family Bible. Everything was tossed carelessly across the polished floor. Lillian's eyes widened. "Please." She knelt, trying to gather the scattered belongings. Samuel bent down beside her. "We'll pick them up." Collins suddenly pushed Samuel backward. "I didn't tell you to move." Samuel lost his balance and struck one shoulder against a decorative column. The lobby fell silent. A woman quietly whispered, "That wasn't necessary." Another guest immediately replied, "Maybe the officer knows something we don't." Lillian looked around desperately. No one came forward. No one objected. Most simply watched. Kevin Rhodes folded his arms, looking almost satisfied. Melissa Grant stood beside him without saying a word. The younger officer shifted uneasily. "Sergeant," Collins interrupted him. "Search the second bag." Inside, they found neatly folded clothes, a photo album, and a silver picture frame. Collins picked up the frame. The photograph showed a smiling young Marcus standing between his parents years earlier. All three were laughing. "Your son," Samuel nodded proudly. "Yes." Collins glanced at the picture for only a second before tossing it onto the marble floor. The glass shattered. Lillian gasped. "No!" She rushed forward, dropping to her knees. Her hands shook as she tried to collect the broken pieces. A small cut opened across one finger. Blood slowly appeared. Samuel's face tightened. "Officer, there was no reason for that." Collins shrugged. "It slipped." It didn't slip. Their eyes met. For the first time, Samuel's calm voice carried unmistakable disappointment. "My wife treasured that photograph." Collins stepped closer. "You've got bigger problems than a picture frame." He nodded toward another officer. "Cuff him." The younger officer hesitated. "Sergeant, are we placing him under arrest?" "I said cuff him." "Apresacho. But on what charge?" Collins answered without taking his eyes off Samuel. "Detaining him pending investigation." Samuel slowly raised his hands. "I won't resist." Lillian stood abruptly. "You can't handcuff my husband." Collins pointed at her. "Take one more step and I'll detain you too." Tears rolled down her face. "He has high blood pressure." He should have thought about that before committing fraud. "We didn't commit anything." Collins grabbed Samuel's wrists. The metal handcuffs clicked shut. The sound echoed through the lobby like a gunshot. Lillian felt her legs weaken. 40 years. 40 years of building an honest life. Reduced to this moment. Handcuffs, whispers, phones recording every second. Samuel looked directly at his wife. "Don't cry. I'm trying. You've always been stronger than me." She forced a trembling smile through her tears. "And you're still trying to make me smile." Before either of them could say another word, one of the officers searching the luggage suddenly called out, "Sergeant!" Collins turned. "What is it?" The officer held up a sealed envelope that had been tucked beneath the lining of Samuel's overnight bag. It was thick, far thicker than an ordinary envelope. Collins slowly opened it. Bundles of $100 bills appeared inside. The lobby erupted in shocked murmurs. Kevin Rhodes folded his arms triumphantly. "I knew it." Lillian stared at the money as though seeing it for the first time. Her voice barely escaped. I've never seen that." Samuel looked equally stunned. "That wasn't in our bag." Collins smiled a cold, satisfied smile. "Funny." He lifted the envelope for everyone to see. "Because we just found it." He stepped directly in front of Samuel. "Now your little anniversary story is falling apart." Samuel shook his head firmly. "Someone planted that." Collins leaned closer. "Tell it to the judge." Outside, more police lights reflected across the hotel's glass entrance. Inside, no one noticed that a young receptionist standing behind the front desk had quietly pressed the record button on her phone, capturing every second of what was unfolding. Silence hung over the lobby for only a heartbeat. Then came the whispers. I knew something wasn't right. They looked too ordinary to afford this place. That's a lot of cash. Every sentence landed like another stone on Lillian's heart. She stared at the thick envelope in Sergeant Derek Collins's hand, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. "Samuel," she whispered. "Tell them." Samuel's eyes never left the money. "I've never seen that envelope before." Collins let out a sarcastic laugh. "Of course you haven't." Samuel looked directly at him. "Someone put that in my bag." Kevin Rhodes folded his arms with satisfaction, so now the evidence planted itself. Several guests nodded, as if Kevin's remark settled the matter. Lillian stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "My husband packed those bags himself yesterday morning. I watched him." Collins shrugged. "Maybe you packed the money together." Her face turned pale. "How could you even say that?" "I've arrested enough people to know every innocent person says the same thing." Samuel spoke quietly. "Being experienced doesn't give you the right to assume guilt." Collins walked closer until they were only inches apart. "No." He held up the envelope. "This does." He handed it to another officer. "Bag it as evidence." The younger officer carefully placed the envelope into a larger evidence bag, but something about the situation bothered him. He looked at Samuel, then at the torn lining inside the suitcase, then back at Collins. "Sergeant." "What?" "The opening beneath the lining." "What about it?" "It looks like it was cut recently." Collins barely glanced at it. "Criminals hide money in all kinds of places." The young officer frowned. "But if it had been there for a while, there should be wear marks." Collins shot him a cold look. "Are you the detective now?" The officer immediately fell silent. "That's what I thought." Lillian noticed the hesitation. For the first time since the nightmare began, she realized not every officer believed they were guilty. She quietly memorized the young officer's name stitched onto his uniform, Officer Noah Jenkins. Nearby, the receptionist stood frozen behind the counter. Emily Carter had worked at Harbor Crown for almost 2 years. She had witnessed demanding guests, celebrity arguments, even drunken fights. But she had never seen an elderly couple treated this way. More importantly, she had seen something no one else appeared to notice. Just before Sergeant Collins arrived, Security Chief Melissa Grant had quietly taken Samuel's suitcase into the staff office for nearly 3 minutes. At the time, Emily assumed it was part of hotel procedure. Now, nothing about it felt normal. Her pulse quickened. She discreetly opened the security monitoring application on the computer. Camera 12 unavailable, camera 13 offline, camera 14 signal lost. Emily frowned. 3 lobby cameras had never failed at the same time. She checked the maintenance log. No scheduled repairs, no reported malfunction. She quietly glanced toward Melissa. Melissa immediately noticed. Their eyes met. Melissa's expression hardened. Emily quickly looked away. A knot formed in her stomach. Something was terribly wrong. Across the lobby, Collins handed Samuel's wallet back to another officer. "Inventory everything." Samuel spoke calmly. "You've embarrassed my wife enough." Collins smirked. "We're just getting started." Lillian couldn't hold back any longer. "My husband spent nearly 40 years climbing utility poles to keep this city running." No one answered. "He never missed a mortgage payment." Silence. "He volunteered at our church every Saturday." A few guests lowered their eyes. "He taught neighborhood boys how to repair bicycles because they couldn't afford new ones." Her voice cracked. "And today, people who don't know him believe he's a criminal after looking at him for less than 5 minutes." No one applauded. No one defended them. The silence hurt even more. Kevin broke it. Ma'am, emotion isn't evidence. Samuel turned slowly toward him. Neither is prejudice. Kevin's jaw tightened. What did you say? You judged us before asking a single honest question. I judged what I saw. Samuel nodded. Exactly. The words lingered in the air. Collins interrupted. Enough speeches. He pointed toward the hotel entrance. Let's move him. As officers guided Samuel forward, Lillian instinctively followed. One officer gently stopped her. I'm sorry, ma'am. I needed to stay with my husband. You can't. Please. Her voice was almost inaudible. We've never spent a night apart in 40 years. Even the officer hesitated. Collins didn't. Put her in the second cruiser if she refuses to cooperate. Lillian froze. Samuel immediately spoke. Lillian. She looked at him. Listen to me. I'm not leaving you. You have to. Tears rolled down both their faces. I'll be all right. No. You remember what we always taught Marcus? She nodded weakly. The truth. And, she whispered through tears, the truth doesn't stop being true just because nobody believes it. Samuel smiled gently. Exactly. Those words became the only thing keeping Lillian standing. Behind the front desk, Emily quietly removed her phone from her pocket. She had recorded almost everything since Collins entered the lobby. The humiliation, the search, the shattered photograph, the handcuffs, the envelope. Every second. Her hands trembled. She knew reporting it could cost her job, maybe more. Melissa was close friends with Kevin. Kevin had influence throughout the hotel chain. But Emily also knew one thing. If she stayed silent, she would become part of what happened here. She opened an encrypted tip website she remembered from an employee ethics seminar months earlier. It accepted anonymous submissions involving public corruption. Without hesitation, she uploaded the video. Then she typed one sentence. Something is wrong with this arrest. Please review before it's too late. She pressed send. The upload completed. Unknown to everyone inside Harbor Crown Hotel, the video had just entered a secure federal reporting system. Emily quickly locked her phone as Melissa began walking toward the reception desk. You seem busy, Melissa said. Emily forced a smile. Just checking reservation updates. Melissa stared at her for another moment before walking away. Emily exhaled slowly. She had no idea who would receive the video. She only prayed someone would. Outside, Samuel was guided toward the waiting patrol car. Inside the lobby, Lillian stood alone, clutching the broken anniversary photograph against her chest. Neither of them knew that hundreds of miles away, a secure federal operations center was about to receive an alert that would change everything. More than 20 miles away from Harbor Crown Hotel, inside a secure federal operations center on the outskirts of Baltimore, dozens of digital maps covered an entire wall. Every moving dot represented months of surveillance. Every photograph connected another piece of a criminal network. At the center of the room stood Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Brooks. Unlike the neatly dressed young man smiling in the broken family photograph, Marcus now looked every bit the seasoned federal investigator. His navy suit was wrinkle-free despite 16 straight hours of work. A badge rested inside his jacket, hidden from view. His calm expression rarely changed even under pressure. He studied a series of financial transfers projected across the screen. Richard Vaughn, real estate developer, political donor, philanthropist in public, the suspected architect of a multi-million-dollar bribery network in private. Harbor Crown Hotel had quietly become the organization's preferred meeting place. For 18 months, Marcus and his task force had built the case one piece at a time. Wiretaps, financial records, encrypted messages, witness statements. Everything pointed toward one final operation. A junior analyst approached his desk. Morning activity is increasing at the hotel. Marcus nodded. You'll keep surveillance passive. Nobody moves until Vaughn arrives. Yes, sir. Another agent entered carrying a folder. The U.S. attorney approved the final warrants. Marcus opened the folder. Every signature he had been waiting for was finally there. If everything went according to plan, the operation would end before sunset. His phone vibrated once. Private. Only a handful of people possessed that number. Marcus glanced at the screen. No voicemail, no message. Only an automated priority notification. Anonymous submission received. Normally those alerts were filtered through another department. This one carried an unusual classification: potential public corruption. Marcus ignored it. Not because it wasn't important, because today every second mattered. He placed the phone face down. Continue monitoring. Across the operations floor, analysts tracked dozens of encrypted communications. No one noticed another alert arriving less than 2 minutes later. Supplemental video attached. Then another. Possible officer misconduct. The duty intelligence coordinator frowned. Sir, Marcus looked up. What is it? We've received multiple corruption alerts connected to Harbor Crown. Marcus walked over. Internal police. Possibly. The coordinator enlarged the file. No sender identification. Marcus hesitated. Their investigation already involved suspected public officials. If local officers were interfering, that changed everything. Open it. The video began playing. At first it showed only the hotel lobby. Guests, the reception desk, nothing unusual. Then Kevin Rhodes appeared. Marcus watched silently. The volume increased. Sometimes reservations are made using stolen credit cards. His eyes narrowed. The camera angle shifted. Samuel, Lillian. Marcus froze. For several long seconds he said nothing. No one in the room understood why. The analysts simply continued watching. Collins entered the lobby. The search began. The shattered picture frame. The handcuffs. Lillian crying. Samuel standing calmly despite everything. Someone quietly asked, Sir, do you know these people? Marcus still didn't answer. Instead, he replayed one section, frame by frame. Melissa Grant disappeared into the staff hallway carrying Samuel's suitcase. She returned alone. 3 minutes later, Collins found the cash. Marcus looked toward the surveillance specialist. Pause. The image froze. Zoom in on the timestamp. The specialist enlarged it. Marcus immediately noticed something else. The timestamp jumped. Nearly 4 minutes were missing. Not from the recording. From the hotel's own surveillance clock reflected in a decorative mirror. Someone had interrupted the camera sequence. His expression changed. Calm became cold. Run enhancement. Another analyst spoke. Sir, whoever submitted this included metadata. Marcus scanned the report. Original recording device. Employee Wi-Fi. Harbor Crown internal network. The anonymous sender worked inside the hotel. The room grew quiet. Finally, Marcus spoke. I want every surveillance feed around Harbor Crown reviewed. An agent nodded. Right away. I also want dispatch records from Baltimore police. On it. Marcus's phone vibrated again. This time the caller ID displayed one word: Mom. The room suddenly felt smaller. Lillian almost never called him during working hours. Never. Marcus answered immediately. There was no voice, only muffled sobbing. Then the line disconnected. His heart sank. For the first time in years, the composed federal supervisor disappeared. He called back instantly. No answer. Again. Straight to voicemail. He looked toward the operations room. "Patch me into Baltimore Police Dispatch." Within seconds, the dispatcher answered. "This is Baltimore Communications. This is Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Brooks, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I need the status of an incident at Harbor Crown Hotel." A brief pause followed. "I'm sorry, sir. One moment." Keyboard clicks echoed over the line. "We have an active detention involving suspected fraud." Marcus's jaw tightened. Names: Samuel Brooks. Time seemed to stop. And Lillian Brooks. No one in the room moved. Marcus slowly lowered the phone. Every member of the task force was staring at him. Senior Agent Rebecca Lawson finally spoke. "Marcus." He looked at her. Those who had worked beside him for years had never seen his composure crack. They did. "My parents." Silence. Rebecca understood immediately. "The people in the video," Marcus nodded once. "They're my parents." No one spoke. No one knew what to say. Marcus inhaled deeply, forcing himself back under control. Emotion could not lead this operation. Evidence had to. Law had to. He turned toward the operations board. "Listen carefully." Every agent straightened. "Our primary investigation remains active." He paused. "But from this moment forward," his eyes settled on the frozen image of Samuel standing in handcuffs. "Any officer who interfered with a federal investigation, planted evidence, or violated constitutional rights becomes part of this investigation." The room fell silent again. Rebecca stepped beside him. "What are your orders?" Marcus reached for his badge. His voice was calm once more. "Prepare the response convoy." Outside the operations center, engines began starting one after another. Black SUVs rolled out of the secured garage. The operation had just changed, and Sergeant Derek Collins had no idea that the elderly black couple he had humiliated in front of an entire hotel were the parents of the man now leading a federal convoy directly toward him. The rear door of the patrol car slammed shut with a heavy metallic thud. Samuel Brooks sat quietly in the back seat, his wrists still locked in handcuffs. Through the window, he watched Lillian standing alone on the hotel sidewalk, clutching the broken anniversary photograph against her chest. For the first time in 40 years, he couldn't walk over and wipe away her tears. Inside Harbor Crown Hotel, Sergeant Derek Collins wasn't finished. He turned toward Kevin Rhodes with a satisfied grin. "I'll take him downtown." Kevin nodded. "Good. The sooner this disappears, the better." Officer Noah Jenkins happened to overhear the comment. His eyebrows narrowed. Disappears. It was an odd choice of words. He glanced toward the evidence bag containing the cash. Something still bothered him. The envelope looked almost too clean. No fingerprints had been collected. No photographs had been taken before it was removed. Basic procedures were being skipped. Sergeant Noah called carefully. Collins looked annoyed. "What now?" "Shouldn't crime scene photograph the suitcase before transport?" Collins stared at him for several seconds. "This isn't a homicide." "I understand." "Then stop asking questions." Noah remained respectful. "I'm only trying to preserve the chain of evidence." Collins stepped closer until they were face to face. The chain of evidence is whatever I say it is. Several officers exchanged uneasy looks. No one spoke. Noah slowly nodded. Yes, Sergeant. But the answer only deepened his suspicion. Across the parking area, Lillian hurried toward the patrol car. Please. One officer gently intercepted her. You can't approach the vehicle, ma'am. I only want to speak to my husband. The officer hesitated. Collins did not. Move her back. Lillian looked directly at Collins. You already embarrassed us in front of everyone. She struggled to steady her voice. Please, just give us 1 minute. Collins folded his arms. You've had enough opportunities. Samuel leaned toward the slightly open window. Lillian. She stepped closer. I'm here. I need you to listen carefully. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. Go home if they let you. I'm not leaving without you. You have to. No. You remember what we promised, Marcus? She nodded faintly. We'd never solve anger with anger. Samuel smiled gently. Exactly. I can't abandon you. You're not abandoning me. He looked into her eyes. You're protecting our family. Lillian tried to answer, but emotion closed her throat. Collins slammed the patrol car door shut. Conversation's over. As the engine started, Noah quietly walked toward another patrol unit. He removed his body camera and reviewed the footage. Everything had been recorded. The search, the shattered picture frame, Samuel being shoved, Lillian crying. More importantly, the moment Collins ordered officers to stop documenting parts of the search. Noah replayed the footage twice. His stomach tightened. If this case reached court exactly as it stood, something wouldn't add up. He discreetly copied the recording onto a secure backup drive required by department policy. Just as he finished, another voice interrupted. What are you doing? Noah turned. It was Officer Daniel Ruiz. Backing up my body cam. Ruiz looked toward Collins. You think that's necessary? I think it's smart. Ruiz lowered his voice. You don't trust the sergeant, Noah answered carefully. I trust evidence. Ruiz studied him for a moment before quietly nodding. Good answer. Inside the hotel, Melissa Grant entered the security office. She immediately sat before the surveillance computer. Rows of cameras filled the monitors. Lobby, entrance, hallways, parking garage. She inserted a flash drive. Files began disappearing one after another. Camera 12, deleted. Camera 13, deleted. Camera 14, deleted. Progress, 82%. She never noticed Emily Carter standing just outside the slightly open office door. Emily's heartbeat accelerated. She had suspected something. Now she was watching it happen. Melissa was erasing surveillance footage. Emily carefully raised her phone just enough to capture several seconds of video through the narrow opening. The computer screen clearly displayed delete successful. Emily immediately stepped away before Melissa could see her. She slipped into a nearby employee hallway, breathing hard. This is bigger than I thought, she whispered. She opened the same secure reporting portal she had used earlier. A second upload began. This time she included the short recording from outside the security office along with a message. A hotel security manager deleting surveillance footage after police detained elderly couple. She pressed send. Hundreds of miles of fiber optic cable carried the encrypted file toward federal servers. Emily had no idea it was about to land on the desk of the very task force already reviewing her first submission. Outside, Collins walked toward Samuel's patrol car one last time. He opened the rear door. I'll give you one chance. Samuel looked up calmly. For what? Tell me who gave you the money. No one. Wrong answer. I won't confess to something I didn't do. Collins leaned closer. You know what happens to old men in county jail? Samuel remained silent. They don't enjoy it. Samuel slowly met his eyes. You want me to be afraid. I want you to be honest. I already have been, Collins laughed. You still think someone's coming to save you? Samuel answered without hesitation. I'm not waiting for someone to save me. No, I'm waiting for the truth. Collins slammed the door shut. We'll see how long that attitude lasts. The patrol car pulled away from the curb. Lillian stood motionless, watching it disappear into afternoon traffic until it became nothing more than flashing blue lights in the distance. She pressed the cracked photograph against her heart. Please, Marcus, she whispered, unaware her son couldn't hear her. Wherever you are, I need you. At that exact moment, less than 15 miles away, 5 black SUVs sped through Baltimore under federal authorization. Inside the lead vehicle, Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Brooks stared at the latest evidence arriving on his secure tablet. Emily's second video had just finished uploading. Marcus watched Melissa Grant deleting the surveillance footage. His expression became colder than anyone in the convoy had ever seen. He looked up at the driver. Change of plans? Yes, sir. Marcus closed the tablet. They're no longer just detaining innocent people. He clipped his FBI badge onto his belt, where it could be seen clearly. They're destroying evidence. The convoy accelerated. Every second now mattered. The 5 black SUVs raced through downtown Baltimore without flashing emergency lights. Inside the lid vehicle, no one spoke. Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Brooks stared through the windshield. His jaw clenched as Emily Carter's recordings replayed in his mind. His mother crying. His father standing in handcuffs. The shattered anniversary photograph. The planted cash. The deleted surveillance footage. Each image fueled a different emotion. Not anger. Resolve. Senior Agent Rebecca Lawson broke the silence. Local dispatch confirms they're transporting Samuel Brooks to Central Precinct. Marcus looked at the digital map. Estimated arrival. 7 minutes. He shook his head. They'll never make it. Rebecca understood immediately. You want the hotel first. Marcus nodded. The people destroying evidence are still there. Another agent looked up from his laptop. Judge Harrison has approved the supplemental federal warrants. Marcus took the documents. The new warrants included obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, interference with a federal investigation. He signed the final authorization. Move. The convoy accelerated. Back at Harbor Crown Hotel, Kevin Rhodes finally allowed himself to relax. He loosened his tie and poured himself a glass of sparkling water inside his office. Melissa Grant entered without knocking. It's done. Kevin looked up. The camera's gone. And the backups. I deleted every lobby recording. Kevin smiled. Good. Melissa wasn't smiling. What if someone already copied them? Kevin dismissed the concern with a wave. Who? The receptionist. Kevin frowned. Emily. She's been acting nervous. Kevin stood. I'll deal with her. Before he could leave the office, a hotel employee burst through the doorway. Mr. Rhodes. What? There are several black SUVs pulling into the front entrance. Kevin barely looked concerned. Probably another conference? The employee swallowed. I don't think so. Why? They're all government vehicles. Kevin's smile slowly faded. Outside guests gathering beneath the entrance stepped backward as 5 identical SUVs stopped in perfect formation. Their doors opened simultaneously. Men and women wearing dark business suits stepped out with disciplined precision. None of them spoke. Each carried a visible federal credential. People instinctively moved aside. A hotel valet whispered, "Shh, who are they?" Another employee quietly answered, I don't know." Marcus stepped out of the center vehicle. He adjusted his suit jacket once, then clipped his FBI badge onto his belt where everyone could clearly see it. The gold shield caught the afternoon sunlight. Rebecca handed him a folder. "Everything's ready." Marcus nodded. "No mistakes." Together they walked toward the entrance. Automatic doors slid open. The lobby fell completely silent. Even the piano music seemed insignificant. Every guest turned. Every employee froze. Kevin Rhodes stepped from his office just in time to see the group approaching. He forced a professional smile. "Good afternoon. Welcome to Harbor Crown Hotel. How may I?" Marcus held up his badge. "Supervisory Special Agent Marcus Brooks." Kevin's smile disappeared. "We're conducting official federal business." Melissa's face turned pale. Marcus looked around the lobby. His eyes immediately found the shattered glass still scattered across the marble floor. A small streak of dried blood remained where Lillian had cut her finger. He said nothing. Rebecca stepped beside him. "Secure every exit." Within seconds, federal agents calmly positioned themselves throughout the hotel. No one entered. No one left. Guests exchanged nervous glances. Kevin tried to regain control. "Agent Brooks, perhaps we should discuss this privately." Marcus looked directly at him. "No." His calm voice echoed through the lobby. "We'll discuss it exactly where today's events occurred." The entire room became still. Melissa quietly reached toward the radio on her shoulder. An FBI agent immediately stepped beside her. "Please remove your hands from the device." "What?" "You heard me." Kevin cleared his throat. "There seems to be some misunderstanding." Marcus opened the folder. "Is there?" He removed one document. "This is a federal warrant, authorizing the immediate preservation and seizure of all surveillance systems inside Harbor Crown Hotel." Kevin stared at the paper. Marcus removed another. "This is a second warrant authorizing the seizure of employee electronic devices related to today's incident." Melissa's breathing quickened. Then came the third. "This warrant authorizes the detention of any individual reasonably suspected of destroying evidence connected to an active federal investigation." Kevin's confidence visibly cracked. "Federal investigation," Marcus calmly closed the folder. "Yes," Kevin laughed nervously. "There must be some mistake." Marcus took one slow step closer. "No mistake." Another federal agent approached Marcus carrying a tablet. "Sir." Marcus reviewed the screen, Emily's second anonymous upload. Melissa deleting surveillance footage. Timestamp. Internal server confirmation. Original metadata. Everything matched. Marcus looked at Melissa. "Chief Grant." She swallowed. "Yes. Where are the lobby recordings from cameras 12 through 14? Melissa hesitated. I don't know." Marcus handed the tablet to Rebecca. "Play it." The video appeared on the large display monitor behind the reception desk. Everyone watched. Melissa entered the security office, inserted a flash drive, selected surveillance files, pressed delete. Kevin closed his eyes. Guests gasped. Hotel employees stared in disbelief. Melissa whispered, "I can explain." Marcus interrupted. "You'll have every opportunity." She looked toward Kevin. He looked away. For the first time all afternoon. Neither of them had an answer. Just then, Marcus's phone vibrated. Rebecca glanced at the screen. Central Precinct reports Sergeant Collins is still transporting Samuel Brooks. Marcus's expression remained calm. "Tell them to stop that vehicle immediately." Rebecca relayed the order. Seconds later, another voice came through her earpiece. "Road units are moving now." Marcus nodded once, then looked back toward Kevin. "This hotel is now considered part of a federal crime scene." The words struck the lobby like thunder. No one spoke. No one moved. They still had no idea why one elderly black couple had brought the FBI to Harbor Crown Hotel. And neither Kevin nor Melissa had yet realized the most devastating truth of all. The federal agent standing before them wasn't simply investigating the case. He had come for his family. No one in the Harbor Crown lobby dared to speak. The only sound came from the large monitor replaying Melissa Grant deleting surveillance footage. Kevin Rhodes wiped the sweat from his forehead. This doesn't prove anything," he said, trying to steady his voice. "The cameras malfunctioned. Melissa was only clearing corrupted files." Marcus Brooks didn't react. Instead, he looked toward Rebecca Lawson. "Brings in the digital forensics team." 3 FBI specialists entered carrying rugged black cases. Within seconds, they disconnected the hotel's surveillance server and connected federal forensic equipment. One technician spoke confidently. "Server secured." Another looked toward Marcus. "We'll know within minutes whether the files were permanently erased." Kevin forced a laugh. "Even if they were deleted, that doesn't mean anyone committed a crime." Marcus finally looked directly at him. "No." He paused. "It becomes a crime when evidence is destroyed after an active investigation begins." Kevin's confidence faded again. Across the lobby, Melissa stood motionless. Her hands were trembling. One of the forensic analysts suddenly spoke. "Sir." Marcus walked over. "What do you have?" "The files weren't erased." Rebecca looked surprised. "What?" The analyst enlarged the monitor. "They were marked for deletion but never overwritten." He typed several commands. Rows of recovered video files appeared. Timestamps, camera numbers, original metadata. Everything was still there. Melissa closed her eyes. "Oh no." Marcus nodded. "Recover every minute." The progress bar slowly climbed. 20%, 45, 70. Finally, recovery complete. The technician opened camera 12. Everyone watched. Samuel and Lillian entered the hotel. They smiled at one another. They hugged briefly before walking to the reception desk. Nothing suspicious. Camera 13 appeared next. Kevin confronting the couple, repeatedly questioning their reservation, humiliating them in front of guests. Still no crime. Then camera 14. The room became silent again. The footage clearly showed Melissa rolling Samuel's suitcase into the security office before police arrived. Kevin's face lost all color. Marcus said quietly, "Continue." The video advanced. 3 minutes later, Melissa emerged carrying the exact same suitcase. She looked around the hallway before returning it to the lobby. Nobody had noticed. Until now. Rebecca folded her arms. "Interesting." Marcus remained expressionless. "Keep going." The footage reached the moment Collins arrived. Everyone watched Samuel's belongings being searched. The envelope appeared, exactly where Melissa had secretly taken the suitcase minutes earlier. Guests inside the lobby gasped. One elderly man whispered, "My God." Another woman lowered her phone. "I thought they were guilty." Kevin tried to interrupt. "There has to be another explanation." Marcus turned toward him. "There is." He pointed toward the monitor. "The truth." Melissa suddenly broke. "I didn't know what was inside the envelope." Every head turned toward her. "I swear." Tears filled her eyes. "Kevin told me to move the suitcase." Kevin immediately shouted, "Don't drag me into this. You gave me the access card. You volunteered. You told me Sergeant Collins needed time." The lobby erupted into stunned whispers. Rebecca calmly looked at another agent. "Record every statement." "Already recording." Marcus walked toward Melissa. Who gave you the envelope?" She hesitated. Kevin closed his eyes. Melissa finally whispered, "Sergeant Collins." Silence. Marcus asked again, "When?" "This morning." "Where?" "In the parking garage." "What exactly did he tell you?" Melissa's shoulders shook. "He said..." Her voice almost disappeared. "He said nobody would question an elderly black couple once cash was found." The words echoed across the lobby. Several hotel employees looked down in shame. One guest quietly apologized to Lillian, though she wasn't even there to hear it. Rebecca immediately called dispatch. "We need Collins stopped now." The dispatcher answered almost instantly. "Federal units intercepted the patrol vehicle less than 2 minutes ago." Marcus took a slow breath. "And Samuel Brooks, safe." Relief briefly crossed Marcus's face, the first genuine emotion anyone had seen from him all afternoon. Just then, another FBI agent entered the lobby, escorting Officer Noah Jenkins. Noah carried a small evidence drive. "Sir." Marcus looked at him. "You requested any independent recordings." Noah nodded. "I backed up my body camera before anyone could access it." Marcus accepted the drive. "Thank you, officer. I wasn't sure who to trust." "You trusted the evidence." Noah gave a quiet nod. Marcus handed the drive to the forensic team. Minutes later, the body camera footage appeared on the screen. Every illegal order, every unnecessary shove, every mocking remark, every procedural violation, most importantly. The recording captured Collins quietly telling another officer, "Turn your camera away." The forensic specialist froze the frame. Rebecca looked toward Marcus. "That alone supports obstruction." Marcus nodded. "It supports much more." Kevin slowly sank into a nearby chair. "It's over," Rebecca corrected him. "No." She looked directly at him. "It's just beginning." At that moment, the front doors opened once more. 2 FBI agents escorted Sergeant Derek Collins into the lobby. His hands were cuffed behind his back. He looked furious. The moment he saw Marcus standing in the center of the room, he laughed bitterly. "So you're the federal agent making all this noise?" Marcus met his eyes calmly. "Yes." Collins glanced around the crowded lobby. "You've embarrassed half the city over an old fraud case." Marcus took one slow step forward. "No." His voice remained perfectly controlled. "You embarrass..." Collins smirked. "You still don't know who you're dealing with." Marcus looked toward the officers escorting Collins, then back into Collins's eyes. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with." He reached into his jacket and slowly removed the cracked family photograph that had been recovered from Samuel's luggage. Marcus held it where everyone could see. The picture showed a younger Marcus standing proudly between Samuel and Lillian. He looked at Collins. "You asked my father whether his son even existed." The lobby became silent once again. Marcus's next words struck every person in the room. "He does." Collins frowned. Marcus's voice never rose. "And Samuel Brooks," he paused, "is my father." A wave of disbelief swept across the entire hotel. Kevin's eyes widened. Melissa covered her mouth. Officer Noah stared in complete shock. Even Collins stood speechless for the first time that day. The greatest truth they had mocked had finally been revealed. No one moved. No one even breathed. Marcus Brooks stood in the center of Harbor Crown Hotel, holding the cracked family photograph in one hand and his FBI credentials in the other. The image spoke louder than any badge ever could. Samuel Brooks. Lillian Brooks. The elderly black couple who had been humiliated, searched, handcuffed, and publicly labeled as criminals, were his parents. Sergeant Derek Collins stared at the photograph before looking back at Marcus. For the first time that day, his confidence disappeared. "You," he muttered. Marcus slipped the photograph carefully back into its protective folder. "I warned no one because my parents never asked for special treatment." His voice remained calm. "They've spent their entire lives believing respect should be earned through character, not demanded through titles." He slowly turned toward everyone gathered inside the lobby. "My mother taught children to believe in fairness for 32 years. He looked toward the broken glass that still lay near the reception desk. "My father climbed electrical poles through storms so strangers would never lose power." The room remained silent. "They walked into this hotel as respected American citizens." Marcus paused. "You treated them like criminals before asking for the truth." Nobody could argue. Rebecca Lawson stepped beside Marcus, carrying another folder. "Digital forensics has completed the preliminary report." Marcus nodded. "Proceed." Rebecca addressed the room. "Recovered surveillance confirms that Security Chief Melissa Grant removed Samuel Brooks's suitcase before police arrived." She turned another page. Officer Noah Jenkins's body camera confirms Sergeant Derek Collins repeatedly ignored standard evidence procedures. Another page. Recovered communications show multiple phone calls between Sergeant Collins, Kevin Rhodes, and businessman Richard Vaughn during the past 48 hours. Kevin looked up in panic. "That's business-related." Rebecca calmly continued. Financial investigators also confirmed 3 unexplained wire transfers totaling $94,000 into accounts linked to shell companies controlled by Mr. Rhodes. Kevin's knees nearly gave out. Melissa began crying openly. "I didn't know about the money." Marcus looked directly at her. "But you destroyed evidence." She slowly lowered her head. "Yes. I made a terrible mistake." Marcus answered quietly. "Your mistake almost destroyed 2 innocent lives." Federal agents approached Kevin first. Kevin Rhodes. He looked around desperately. This is a misunderstanding." An agent placed handcuffs around his wrists. "You are under arrest for obstruction of justice, conspiracy, evidence tampering, and interference with a federal investigation." Kevin's shoulders collapsed. Another team approached Melissa. She didn't resist. "I'll cooperate." Rebecca nodded. "I hope you do." Finally, 2 agents stopped beside Derek Collins. The former sergeant looked directly at Marcus. "This is because they're your parents." Marcus answered immediately. "No." He stepped closer. This happened because you believed the badge on your chest placed you above the Constitution you swore to defend. Collins clenched his jaw. Marcus continued. You didn't know who Samuel Brooks was. No. You didn't know who Lillian Brooks was. Collins remained silent. You didn't need to. The words echoed through the lobby. You owed them dignity the moment they walked through those doors. The agents secured Collins's handcuffs. As they led him away, several guests quietly stepped aside. Hours earlier, those same people had watched without speaking. Now, many couldn't even meet Marcus's eyes. One elderly woman slowly approached him. I judged your parents, Marcus listened. I'm ashamed, Marcus nodded respectfully. The apology belongs to them. Outside the hotel, another federal SUV stopped. Samuel Brooks stepped out first. The handcuffs were gone. Officer Noah Jenkins walked beside him. I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks. Samuel smiled gently. You treated me fairly. I should have spoken sooner. You did. Noah looked confused. Samuel placed one hand on his shoulder. You protected the evidence. A moment later, another vehicle arrived carrying Lillian. The instant she stepped onto the sidewalk, Marcus walked toward her. For just a second, he wasn't the supervisor of a federal task force. He wasn't the man commanding dozens of agents. He was simply a son. Mom. Lillian burst into tears. Marcus wrapped both arms around her. I'm so sorry. She shook her head. No. She gently touched his face. You came. Samuel joined them seconds later. The three embraced in front of the same hotel where humiliation had begun only hours before. Neither reporters nor agents interrupted them. Some moments deserved silence. Several weeks later, Harbor Crown Hotel announced an entirely new executive leadership team. Mandatory anti-discrimination and constitutional rights training became part of employee policy. Baltimore police suspended multiple supervisors pending an independent review. Officer Noah Jenkins received formal recognition for preserving evidence with integrity despite pressure from a superior. Emily Carter was publicly commended by the Department of Justice for courageously reporting misconduct that prevented innocent people from being wrongfully prosecuted. Richard Vaughn's corruption network collapsed after dozens of arrests and months of hidden evidence finally surfaced. As for Samuel and Lillian, their 40th wedding anniversary celebration was postponed, but not forgotten. Exactly 1 month later, Marcus invited them back to Harbor Crown. The hotel looked different, not because the building had changed, because the people inside had. The new general manager personally welcomed them at the entrance. Every employee stood respectfully. No cameras, no whispers, no suspicion, only dignity. Marcus pulled out a chair for his mother. Samuel smiled at his son. You know, Marcus looked up. What is it, Dad? You finally told us what you do for a living. Everyone laughed. Lillian reached across the table and held both of their hands. I don't care about titles. She smiled through grateful tears. I only care that we never stopped believing in the truth. Marcus nodded. So do I. Outside the restaurant windows, the sun slowly disappeared behind Baltimore Harbor. Their anniversary had begun with handcuffs. It ended with justice. Not because an FBI supervisor had walked through the door, but because truth, no matter how delayed, finally found the courage to stand in the light.
Never measure a person's worth by appearance, age, race, or status. True character reveals itself in moments of injustice, and real courage belongs to those who choose integrity when no one is watching. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories about justice, hope, and the strength of the human spirit.